Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the Student Basic Needs Guiding Team meeting. I am recording just so our friends who are not able to be with us today can hopefully catch up and get an overview of where we are with student basic needs and, of course, where we're going. Um, it's nice to meet you all. I'm Lily Massa McKinley, and I work with the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative. And have been, a part of the basic needs work since the beginning, and I'm just excited to see where it's gone so far. I did just want to do a super high level overview of the infrastructure approach that we have to all of our statewide strategies, which you are a critical part of. And of course, there's the guiding team. And so it's typically a 2 year or so service opportunity where campuses, we try to get a very diverse representation of campuses, but still keep the team, 10 to 12 folks, so that we can have, it's easier to meet, we have good decision making, and we're still representing the voices of our campuses. So this has been the guiding team, I believe, since we launched in 23 or 24. There may have been some transition throughout, but I know that y'all have been serving in this role for a while. So thank you for that. Our guiding team is really purpose of advising the implementation directions of the strategy. So you provide prioritization support. What do we need to do next? How are we going to build on this work? You assist with problem solving, kind of thinking about campus level issues, community-based issues, as well as statewide concerns and considerations. And so you help with the problem solving, we'll bring challenges to you. And then also there's the promotion. And so communicating back to campus coworkers as well as colleagues across the state about the work that is happening and of course opportunities to engage. And we're very thankful for the support of our guiding team. We also have a really strong roster of senior fellows. And these are, of course, part-time. They work about 10 to 20 hours a week, helping us do actual strategy implementation projects. It's very project-based. And I will be meeting with the senior fellows next week, I think, to kind of get a status update on where are they, how are they plugged in, and then talk to them about future opportunities to engage. And then there's our CPE team. And so Amanda Ellis is our Vice President for Student Access and Success. I'm our Assistant Vice President leading the collaborative. Ariane is our strategy lead for basic needs. Tracy Teeter is our strategy lead for adult attainment, but she actually has a significant connection to the basic needs strategy as she is leading the child care solutions work. And then, of course, Olivia Morris Bush, our research fellow, and then Nan Harness, who wrangles us all and is our kind of our lead communicator with our campus partners. So today I was hoping to do two main things and then set us up for the third, but kind of do a recap of where are we now and look at our progress on our strategy that we published in June of 23. And then spend the majority of our time today brainstorming what's next. We have a lot of work in motion, and so that's very exciting. We also have, we're funded by a grant from the ECMC Foundation that is going to come to a conclusion in December of 26. So we are currently in a phase where we are brainstorming ideas for our next grant application. And so, where is there kind of energy and momentum in our work that we want to take to the next level? What does it look like to scale some of these things that we may have begun, but scale it more at a statewide approach? The positive, the lessons learned that have, positive impact for students. What's missing? Like what are we not doing or what have we not gotten to? And how might we want to incorporate that into our next 3-year plan for strategy implementation? And then ultimately, we'll have future meetings where we kind of think more about once we kind of identify some of those big buckets of pieces that we really want to work on. We'll talk about who are the key stakeholders to engage and bring them into the conversation before we are, submitting the grant so that everybody is on board and up to speed. Okay. The reason I love this slide is it's just a high level overview of our two basic goals with our basic needs strategy. The first is to increase access to basic needs supports for all college students. And the other is to increase access to post-secondary education for individuals receiving state supports. And so our strategy is very two-pronged, and both of those populations. It's like a success population and it's an access population. And I really love that we have both of those prongs. So we had 8 recommendations coming out of our strategy and 5 critical success factors. So I'm going to quickly review. You probably already know this, but this is just as like a, I guess, a well check. I'll kind of go over where we are. So with our objective 1 of increasing, access to basic needs supports for our pre-secondary students, we talked about basic needs screening and benefits eligibility screening. We talked about a desire to review our state public benefit plans and increase flexibility for post-secondary students. We wanted to increase the staff capacity of our colleges and universities to provide these basic needs supports and also provide training and ongoing professional development for the broad, stakeholders across our campuses who are also encountering students with basic needs challenges. So those are the top 4. And then, the 4 for our first objective, and then the 4 for increasing access to post-secondary focused on childcare solutions. And so like really a high priority on parenting students and what can we do to alleviate a lack of childcare availability and affordability. Another was on a stronger partnership with the Department for Community-Based Services and helping connect those referrals from folks that are supporting individuals with SNAP benefits, like referring them into post-secondary programs that will lead to financial self-sufficiency for them. We are also focused on facilitating a training and information sharing among these diverse stakeholders in the community, the nonprofit orgs, the government agencies like a DCBS, as well as our campus partners. And then the clear career pathways is another important, how are we messaging to these folks in the community about, access to post-secondary and what programs are in demand in their region that have great earnings and, they're free perhaps with the Work Ready Scholarship. So we just wanted to do a better job communicating that to our folks that are frontline in the community supporting individuals. The critical success factors included awareness raising at the highest levels of our institutions, so that basic needs was really a top priority for all, and looking at the non-academic barriers that can really impact a student's completion. We talked about the infrastructure for moving our partnership and our work forward through a guiding team as well as senior fellows. We focused on the asset map of all of our resources in Kentucky and how do we make sure that everyone is aware and has access to the programs that may already exist to support students. We talked about a communication plan or media kit so that we had common language, we had best practice resources, websites, and if there was anything else that would be digital assets for our partners to use to support and reduce stigma around accessing basic needs. And then finally, tracking the data and looking at the impact of our efforts on student success outcomes. So that is the big challenge. That is our ambitious kind of vision for our work in basic needs. And as I was kind of putting this deck together, I was amazed at how much progress we have really made. So that is very exciting. And I'm happy to, of course, I'll share this out with everyone with the recording. But here's just a little what's our status? We have established the partnership with the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, and we currently have 16 full-time connectors on our KCTCS campuses. I will say that we have attempted to expand that to our public universities, but it was not successful this time around because there was a $4 billion budget shortfall for Medicaid. And so they are trying to they have to make very challenging decisions. And so there is another contract that is already in motion to sustain the connectors at KCTCS for the next 2 years. but we won't even know the status of that until June. But we are advocating and we are working very hard to continue this connector partnership with the vision to continue scaling. We worked with Carrie Welton from Trellis Strategies to conduct a policy scan, and she provided recommendations to the cabinet based on other states and kind of leading approaches to increasing flexibilities for students. And we are meeting with the DCBS partners around how we can continue to kind of make improvements in our state plans. Because apparently we have all the flexibility and all of the control over the implementation of federal guidelines. And some people just choose to implement a more flexible approach, and others have a more conservative approach. So Kentucky is somewhere in the middle, but we do have opportunities to improve. And the staff capacity, as I mentioned, was around the connector partnership, whose primary job is to screen students for benefits eligibility and then support them with resource referrals if they need it. And then also I'm excited that we have started working on this training for our frontline professionals, everyone from a dining services team to a housekeeping or cleaning crew, because they are sometimes the ones that see students who are struggling the most with housing security or food insecurity, as well as our faculty and advisors who often have these conversations directly with students. So we're developing a trusted sources training with the Hope Center. And I will be sharing a version of that training with our Basic Needs Communications Network in about 2 weeks. And so that is comprised of 9 campuses that chose to participate in the project and really help us build out these communication resources. And then the training, of course, will be available to all. For the other 4 recommendations, we are working on the childcare solutions. And we're working with Civic Lab, who does a lot of systems redesign work, as well as Trellis, who's an expert in childcare support, both through the benefits that people receive, as well as creative and innovative approaches to meeting childcare shortfalls, like if you don't have enough resources. So we have 5 campuses that are participating in that active project to do a system redesign and develop an implementation plan. And then we'll be able to share out what we've learned through that project and hope to scale. We are very early in number 6 here, exploring models of hopefully increasing referrals to post-secondary education through DCBS. But we've had a recent conversation and they identified a need for training of their frontline eligibility workers as a key to just getting the word out there more about post-secondary programs that may even have a work-ready scholarship benefit or meet high demand workforce needs in their area. And so that was an identified need. We have said the one for facilitating training and information sharing. This is also kind of connected to number 6, but we worked with an organization, an adult learner expert, basically, to create a Higher Ed 101 training that is, really short, but it's designed to support those DCBS frontline eligibility workers, our connectors on our campuses or in the community, as well as adult ed navigators, to be able to more clearly explain college admissions, financial aid, and some of the basics around, programs, that are good pathways to family sustaining careers. So that training itself has been kind of a train the trainer so far, but we want to have more of a expansive opportunity for folks to be trained or just to receive that kind of information. And then the career pathways, we do not have any action on this, but this is another need that DCBS identified. They kind of wanted a clear one-pager on all of these in demand with family sustaining wages, probably more short-term, work-ready eligible post-secondary programs. And so that is an opportunity, for maybe our next grant consideration to really continue to explore this objective and how can we partner better and provide the resources that are needed. So that's a quick status update there. Continuing with the critical success factors, we haven't done anything formal around the institutional and organizational leadership kind of awareness, engagement, and commitment. We share out I convene the VPSAs or Vice Presidents of Student Success 2 times a year, and then I have one-on-one meetings with them in the summer. And we talk about all of the strategy work, but we haven't had a formal like commitment to endorse, embrace, move forward. So everyone is aware. I would say we can check the awareness box, but I'd love to see more related to what does it look like to really engage our campus leadership in the commitment piece. I would say that we have done a good job establishing our infrastructure, and it's a highly effective team, the guiding team, as well as the 6 senior fellows. I'm very excited also about, you all I'm sure are familiar with myky.info, the resource that the Family Scholar House verifies, and it's a wonderful searchable database of resources across the state. We are partnering with them to use that resource as the foundation of an AI agent. And it would be a closed container of only resources that we put in there. So we would put myky.info as well as our campus partner resources for basic needs. And then with Beacon, a faculty member, an advisor, a basic needs coordinator can go in and search like, oh, I have a student, they're struggling with housing security, they go to NKU, and then it'll pull up campus and community-based resources that could be helpful for that student. So we're very excited about that progress. The communication, we have a whole communications project with the Hope Center right now, and they're doing, it's multiple parts. One is a student testimonial campaign. So these will be assets for our campuses to hopefully destigmatize and raise awareness around basic needs supports. We are also building out a website template, which is just kind of best practices of how to consolidate and communicate about basic needs resources. We'll have that on the Collaboratives website, but it'll be a template that campuses could embrace if they were interested. And then finally, that trusted sources training is the third part of our communications project I mentioned. And then Olivia and I have been working with KY Stats to develop our basic needs data dashboard. And that should be ready for launch and have a handful of briefs on the hot topics by June. And that's a part of our ECMC grant as well, the first one that we have. So that is kind of our current status. I would say I give us like a B+, A- in how much progress we've made on moving our strategy forward and all the various components of it. But we certainly, having only really been in this work for 2.5 to 3 years, I can see like we'll have a lot of really good next steps, I think, to explore. I did just want to share a few data slides. I only have 2. One of them is around our adult learner population. And they are a growing population of students on our campuses. And that is wonderful because we had been declining for a solid 10 years in our adult learner enrollment. And we are finally back on the upswing of that. And obviously we can see KCTCS enrolled 44% of their students are adult learners. Our ICUs, 24% of their students are adult learners. And at our public universities, 14% are adult learners. So Tracy, who leads the adult attainment strategy, has, I don't know, 8 or so initiatives kind of flying to do a lot to support adult learners to come back, to complete, to remove barriers, et cetera. But our work is certainly also, there's a strong overlap in our adult learner population and our populations that have basic needs insecurity. And so like, it's just a critical population to be very aware of. And then also kind of looking at our low income student profile, KCTCS is almost 60% of students are eligible for a Pell Grant. And at our public universities, it's closer to 30%. And then of course there's unknown and, various pieces of why that doesn't add up to 100, but not everybody fills out the FAFSA. We don't have perfect data, but it's a really good estimate for undergraduate students are comprised of about 42% from a low income background. And so the capacity that we need to support some basic needs, the proactivity that we can incorporate to do a better job screening students for basic needs concerns. Like, I think that those are both really strong pieces of our strategy that will ultimately help more of our students from low income backgrounds to succeed. Okay, so my next piece of this was going to be to get us into a Miro board to brainstorm. How do you guys feel about Miro? We can also just have a conversation since we're a small group. Allison, Sarah, what do you guys think?
I haven't did it before, but I mean we can talk and there's not many of us.
Okay, that sounds great. Then
I
I
used
will,
it. I've used it one time in a meeting that had like 16 people in it, and I didn't have my laptop. I had my phone, and I got so frustrated I didn't participate. But
okay.
I'd be willing to try it again.
It's really helpful when you have a lot of people because
Sure.
they can't all speak at the same time. And so to capture their thought, they can just write it down and then we can always come back. So I feel like it's good for that kind of everybody can contribute, but it's not necessary today. So I will just get out my handy dandy little notebook and let me just see what's on my next slide even. I didn't have anything else here. I was just going to go over the Miro. So I can go back though if you'd like to touch on the status update slides that I had, but just kind of high level. Let's just keep this high level right now. We're doing a lot of work, but we really want to think there's so much. What are the highest priorities? The things we really have to do first. And then also kind of like our biggest challenges. So if we just talked about that, what are our highest priorities? We need to do this first. And what are our biggest challenges, campus focused? That will be a wonderful way of us kind of moving forward with the next step of ideation and brainstorming.
Okay. Well, first of all, I this felt like a reset meeting for me because I came into the guiding team, I think late. I don't think I've even been on it for a year.
Okay.
And I felt a little bit lost with it. So that was really helpful. So thank you for all of that. I feel like
That for
for
me too. So I thought, let me just make sure we're all on the same page here as we
yeah,
get
And it's
going.
the same for me. I came in late, so I kind of had an idea of different things, but I didn't know everything in its entirety. That's why I appreciate you recording this and you're going to share it out to us because it's great information to have and to know.
Absolutely. Great.
the thing that comes to mind for me on our campus is just the communication and awareness piece because we have a lot of people who are doing this work in different aspects, but we may not be the people that see the students most often. It's the faculty a lot of times.
Yeah,
So I know Dr. Vance is trying has taken some steps to push resource folders and things out to faculty. So we have taken some steps. So there's definitely been progress. But it's just awareness, when you have a student that comes to you with a specific need, instead of freezing and being like, what do I do next?
yep.
Knowing that information, where they can go.
Hmm.
I would echo that as well. Um, we have a population of 7,500 students, I think, and I'm one person. So the more people that know about resources and where they can access them and that communications network that they're working on the trusted source training and all that stuff, that's going to be great because prior to this, I was on the Benefits Access for College Completion grant, which was nationwide. And what occurred there is we would help students enroll in benefits and get them to obtain benefits and try to stay in college. And that was hard for one person to do. So I'm very thankful for the connectors,
Hmm.
so thankful for them. But yeah, that communications piece and that trusted source training, I think will be great because I'm only one person and I can't be everywhere. And we want to catch them early on before, it's out of control. The fire's out of control and we can't put it out. I am getting evicted tomorrow, or whatever the case may be.
That is so the students, we did a student voice research project as a part of our strategy development. And what they told us, so their insights really did inform we need a trusted sources training because they go to the person that they trust on campus when they have an issue. They don't go to the basic needs coordinator usually. They might get
Right.
referred there, but they start with their faculty member. And so how, or their advisor or their RA, or the woman who always says hello to them in the dining hall, it's whoever is the person that they trust. Um, and so that led to this 30-minute or so trusted sources training, a basic needs 101 that will ultimately lead to Beacon and refer to a connector or a campus point of contact if that kind of faculty, staff, frontline person isn't sure, like maybe the tech side isn't what they want to do next, but they do want a warm handoff. And so here's how we can identify a warm handoff for you. You also mentioned the capacity piece and how critical that really is. And with the connectors, we know students don't really even ask for help until they're literally in crisis. So they don't give us the like, ooh, I got a notice of eviction. If I don't pay in a month, I'm going to be gone next month. It's like, oh crap. Now I'm literally out of my apartment or my home I was renting or wherever. And so the proactivity of screening, and of course the capacity to do that or the process to do that is a really important, I think, piece of hopefully identifying students early so that they're not in crisis mode where the solutions take so much more time and so many more resources. And it seems really high stakes and the students can be super stressed. And I know that the basic needs and mental health connection is very strong. And so like when you have basic needs and security, you also have mental health, a lot of mental health challenges, stress, anxiety, depression, all sorts of other unfortunate things. Tracy, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We have a small group today. We have Allison from EKU and Sarah from Gateway, but we're right now in the brainstorming phase and I asked them highest priorities that they see for our basic needs work and the biggest challenges that they're facing on their campus. And so far, we've discussed capacity, because they have like one person. We've discussed awareness of like just the broad campus community, really understanding the basic needs, resources, and concerns of students. And so those are some of the topics so far.
Thank you. Thanks for getting me up to speed.
Yep. So do you see an expansion of the communications work as being an important next step? Like when we finally do release the trusted sources training and release the website template with resources and release the Beacon AI agent to source and hopefully get our connectors sustained for another 2 years, that'll be great. But like, what does it look like next? And specifically if we don't have to think just about funding, but if we had funding, how would funding specifically support us in, creating, getting this, I don't know, this to scale?
I think funding would definitely assist because, like I said, with capacity and it's just me having multiple different campuses, I'm working at one location one day and then I'm flying down to the next one the next day, or sometimes multiple ones in one day. So I think having that person there right when it's happening, like I can walk you down to this person, or I can give you some resources, but let's go down and talk to, so and so. I think that would be great because some faculty and staff may not feel comfortable having that conversation with the student. And also, I think another challenge that I know we had in the beginning, like when I first started a food pantry many years ago, was the buy-in from staff and faculty and things like that. you know, a lot would be like, well, we're not a community agency. Why are we doing that? Well, it starts at home for these students. They're not going to come in if their kids are hungry or they don't have childcare or whatever. So I think buy-in may be a little bit of a challenge here. I know we have like a manufacturing automotive type group that I beg them to let me come in the classes, and they do, but they're not real receptive to what I say as far as resources. And you can get to a connector and apply for this and that. And I know there's stigma attached to that as well. So that's just kind of the challenges that we have here, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Sky, and it's just really, I think, one faculty member's initiative, and she has champions with her, but she collects from campus staff and faculty essentials like deodorant and face wash, or I mean, just because she's a lot of hygiene project products, because she sees that that's a big need, and she just leaves tampons, like she just leaves them in the bathrooms. And so these resources are here. You can take a mini stick of deodorant, you can take, a personal hygiene product if you need it. And it's just, wow, it's like that's the level of, kind of some of the financial challenges that our students are facing. Um, and the food pantries have been wildly successful in our campuses. I mean, they are so utilized. You cannot, possibly make the case that there's not a huge need for them. Um, but we are working on a kind of a resource guide around beyond the food pantry and like what else can we do to support students with food security. And EKU is a leader in the Aramark accepting SNAP benefits. I'm trying to think. There's also, UK, I don't know how they do this. I really still want to know. They have their $1 cafe. And it's open to everybody. It's open to faculty, to staff, to all students. And so no matter, everybody eats there. You don't have to have or be stigmatized with, oh, I'm food insecure. I don't want to go to the pantry or see anyone to see me going to the pantry. There's programs in Texas where they literally do like the free and reduced price lunch program, and they just offer free lunch to their students at a community college. Because it is a huge food security opportunity for them, and it ensures that they come to campus. They know that they have a hot meal or a free lunch. That's really impressive. So I know that we could, like, if you guys are telling me food security is our number one concern, like we could really dig in to some innovative approaches to, helping our campuses build out those supports for students. Housing security is another one we've really looked into, and it is very challenging to actually help a student when they are homeless. But our approach has been to identify them on a spectrum of housing insecurity. So if we can get to that student when they're just struggling to pay their rent, or before now they're out and they're couch surfing, and now they're no longer, like, their friends are no longer able to host them, and now they literally are sleeping in their cars, and it's unsafe, and it's not healthy conditions. We want to try to move up our screening and our ability to support students before they actually become like super housing insecure. So that's kind of an approach that we've been learning about. They do it a lot in Grand Rapids, Michigan, has a big housing security coalition. Yeah, what other issues would you say are some of the big ones that you think we're not doing enough about, or you'd love to just do something more? Is there anything with textbooks, with transportation, with access to technology? Obviously, childcare is a big barrier for adults, or typically adults.
I know housing is huge up here as well.
Yeah.
So kind of seeing where they are, checking in and getting updates on them, kind of like case management for some of our students would be great. Some of
Yeah.
them don't have support networks. So you are their support. Literally, if they get an A on their test, they come to you and say, "Hey, I got an A," because they have no one else to tell. Um, but like you said, housing and food for sure. Transportation, we do have a partnership with a local bus service where they can
Mhm.
ride the bus for free. But if they want to attend certain degrees at one of our campuses that's located further south, the bus doesn't take them right there and they would have to walk. Um, I do also have a partnership with like a local garage that repairs cars at a discounted rate. So that's good. It's just some people don't have the money to even pay the discounted rate,
Yeah.
or they don't have a car, period, and they need a car because they're in our more rural counties or whatever it may be. So transportation, of course. Um, but I would say probably those are our top three would be housing, food, and transportation.
Awesome. There's a transportation toolkit that I believe Trellis has created. So I'll send that out to the group in case that's helpful. Because they do, of course, Trellis does some surveying around basic needs and security and financial wellness. And I would love I know KCTCS has participated as a system, but I would love to kind of see that statewide and do some kind of baseline surveying. And maybe we just do it every 3 years. Like this would be something where we'd want your organizational leadership commitment so that we could say, okay, we as a state really want to know our Trellis stats every 3 years and see if we're moving the needle. And of course, it's a sample. So, those trends may vary because of that reason. But I think that could be helpful because they talk about transportation, but I don't think we actually have data points on our campuses around transportation and security. We don't even know where we're starting from.
Right.
What about emergency aid? How do you all feel about your emergency aid programs or that as a solution that helps students? It helps them with housing insecurity. It can help them with transportation issues, but it's supposed to be a one-time financial emergency, not a recurring cost. Sometimes emergency aid is used to help a student pay a month's rent, but that's not typically. It's more for, I got a flat tire, my car broke down, and I don't have $500 to get it repaired. So that would be a more likely kind of emergency aid request. I know that ECMC, for example, won't fund emergency aid money, but they will fund our research or our process mapping around emergency aid and our data impact tracking to help us better understand the impact of it, better understand who's accessing it and for what reasons, to better understand the kind of financial tipping point of, we all have varying amounts that we kind of cap as a typical emergency aid award, and we could do more research to understand, what has the highest impact. So that's some work that we have started. We worked with EKU and Laura Vance on that, and now we'll probably be working with U of L as well to better understand the impact of their emergency aid initiatives.
Yeah, I think our barrier is funding. Of course, we had a higher allotment where students could receive student emergency assistance and it could pay rent for a month or to avoid eviction, whatever the case may be. But we had to reduce that allotment. And just because so many students were needing it, and I feel like it makes a small impact, but not one that is going to be life changing where we can actually prevent them from that eviction or help them with that car repair. We're only paying a very small portion. So,
I love that, Sarah, because that is like emergency aid on its own is not going to help a student change, I guess, the circumstances around which they found themselves in a financial emergency. The financial wellness training that could accompany an emergency aid award, like, could be a little bit more of addressing a root challenge. I feel like I've seen that in the research of best practices around emergency aid, that it's not just an award that goes out, but that it's followed up with like assistance with budgeting, like looking at all costs and then seeing how the student is set up to hopefully succeed in not just a paycheck to paycheck kind of one more emergency and you're again in the same situation.
Yeah, I would like to see other schools' practices on how they operate their student emergency fund. We, of course, the student applies for the need. We exhaust all community resources first, and then we have them do a budgeting course, and
Uh-huh.
we have them meet with career services to make sure, if they are employed, this is a sustainable job to or sustainable wage to live. And then we usually do follow up as well because we know if we're not touching back in with that student, it can happen again because it's short term. So, but we were doing in-person budgeting requirements with a local community partner. And that proved to be too tedious because some students were online and weren't really local. And they wanted it in person. So we moved to the virtual option, which has been better. Um, and they do like a quiz at the end to see like scoring over the course. But I'd be interested in like what other places use for best practices or programs they do for budgeting or whatever that may look like.
I love that.
Do you all feel like there is a willingness in your community? You mentioned the shop that will do reduce costs for fixing a car, for example. But do you feel like there would be a willingness in your community to sort of rally around the idea of basic needs supports, and it kind of would speak to the maybe the folks on campus that don't feel it's always the campus's responsibility, and that's not necessarily like that's I can see where they're coming from, but I'm just wondering if there's examples, Lily, of where like whole communities are coming together to support this particular thing. Um, because Olivia, you put that in the chat about Goodwill, like the car situation. There's no way it's easier to track if you don't have any transportation at all. It's harder to track the many students who, I've got a flat tire or I've got a busted radiator, and that has completely stopped my ability to get to childcare, to work, to go to school, any of the thing. I don't know. It's just something, it's a broader issue. It is a broader issue than just on campus, but I feel like the community is going to benefit for every single, of course, um, student that attains their degree. I don't know. It might be interesting. I know that there are places that have some initiatives that are in support of the campus, but more broadly community based. It might be worth, I don't know, just looking into what some of those look like.
Yeah. And we could look into the myky.info to see what's already identified, but I know that there are requirements to be included in that. And so it must be a free resource. It must be open to, well, they can have specific demographics that they serve, but it can't just be a student, like if you have an auto repair program and you let your students bring their cars into the auto shop for the other students to work on and practice on, like that wouldn't be included in the myky.info because there's such a limiting criteria to be eligible for it. But broadly, community-based resources that are free will be included, but it wouldn't cost, or it wouldn't include the things that are like sliding scale, or, some people can do it for free, but if you can pay, like, then I don't think that those are included. So there's an opportunity to enhance our knowledge of the resources. And it would be great to hear, like Sarah, about I have a partnership with this auto mechanic and they do a discounted, support for students. Other campuses may not yet have that type of partnership with a local employer or a local, company. we could do that kind of brainstorming and mapping as well, you know. Or Sarah, you could just be like, when I get into that beacon, I want to make sure that that resource is known for Gateway students.
Yeah. Another challenge just that Gateway has, and this is solely due to our location, we are near a tri-state area. So these Kentucky resources are great, but I also have students that live in Cincinnati. I have students that live in Indiana. So all these different criteria as far as SNAP, I need to know what Ohio is. I need to know what Indiana is, like if there's work requirement or whatever it may be. And our connector can't help those students, but I kind of navigate that system with them. So that's just a challenge we have, and that's solely due to our location.
Oh yeah, that is a really good one to highlight. Yeah, I know our out-of-state students also, you know, they'd have complete different like eligibility requirements, potentially, points of contact for their benefits, like all of that. Hmm. I'm surprised it's not a little bit more like voting, you know, like where you live, you can vote. I guess like if you're an out of state coming from a farther distance, but if you're just living on the border, it wouldn't really, you would vote in still your home county. Um, hmm. I'm sure that there are other exemplars out there that we could certainly look into to see what do they do in Ashland. You know, they're really close to West Virginia, is it? Like Virginia, West Virginia. And so there could be like some other campuses that are, you know, really close to Tennessee border or other places that are dealing with that. And we'll see. There's some good ideas out there. Well, I really appreciate y'all brainstorming with me. I think that was really a great conversation. Um, the next thing that I just wanted to ask y'all about was I'd love to get these meetings back on the calendars monthly. We do have a lot, I think, as a guiding team to discuss and to keep us moving forward with our prioritization of, you know, of course, just progress updates. Here's what's happening, but the prioritization of what's next is a really important role of this group. And so I'll do kind of individual outreaches to those who weren't able to join us today to make sure that our proposed next date works. But I'd love to consider a recurring meeting the first Wednesday of the month at 9. And so what is that in March? March 4th at 9 a.m. Anybody have issues that's here, Sarah or Allison?
That works for me as long as it's at 9 a.m.
Okay, okay,
I have things I can easily adjust
okay.
here.
Okay, well, this will be recurring. So hopefully, even if we're a little bit, you know, it's tough in March, hopefully it'll be easier in April and beyond. And so we'll kind of keep it consistent through December. And I would love this group to kind of be the group that helps advise us through the submission of our ECMC grant. And then I'll give you guys a break. And you can kind of cycle off the basic needs guiding team and we'll identify like kind of new or fresh campus voices to join us in this work. So I'll kind of pitch that in my follow-up email of like this guiding team committing through December of 26 monthly meetings, which will also ensure that we get our ECMC grant submitted. That'll be kind of our primary focus, but also reviewing our progress to date. And if we're stumbling or we're struggling, you know, to help us with the prioritization of that work or the problem solving, I mean. And then the last thing I just wanted to remind everybody about is the upcoming Student Success Summit. And we have free registration for all of our guiding team members. And so it will be, let's see, I'm putting all the content in the chat. It's March 23rd and 24th. It'll be in Louisville. We have two really wonderful keynote speakers, and Ariana Rodriguez, she is Miss Kentucky right now. She's a sophomore attending UK as a social work major. She's also formerly in the foster care system. And she talks, her speech is going to be about from pain to promise, and really the power of post-secondary education and kind of the challenges that our students that are coming to us through a foster care background may experience on our campuses. She's going to be absolutely wonderful. I hope you can join us. You will be able to register for free. So let me know if you have any questions about that. This may be the regular registration link. I will double check, and when I send out the email, make sure that you guys get the link that is for our guiding teams to register. Yeah, and I think that that's all that I have today. Any other thoughts or questions? Okay. Well, I really appreciate your time, y'all, and we'll get a next meeting on the calendar and send out this recording for everyone. Feel free to email me directly if you have any additional thoughts. I'll put my email. Okay. All right. We'll see you again.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Bye.